Oh yeah, I know why you're here. You want to hear a woman's perspective on boob armor. You want the boob experts to chime in on the conversation. Well, you came to the right place. So what is boob armor? Well, the idea behind boob armor is that it has a feminine outline, whether it be the waist or the breastises. And sometime in order to achieve showing armor while having a feminine outline, they'll remove certain pieces of armor that would be necessary to protect said women. And how extreme removal of armor gets varies from time to time. I'm sure you all know of bikini mail as well, which is adjacent to boob armor. And of course there are a lot of complaints about the existence of boob armor and how impractical it is and how sexist it is to show women in such armor. Now more recently being lumped together with boob armor is these females from The Mandalorian, because they have, you see that little dent in the chest piece? Boob armor. You see how they actually show some hips? Can't do that. Okay, legitimately, I might not have even noticed that they were women, unless it was pointed out. Because, they all look almost exactly the same. But anyway, getting back to basics, what are some critiques of boob armor? First and foremost being that it's impractical, and some people have mentioned the idea behind having form-fitting female armor is not really what would happen if women were in the war. They would never have fancy armor made specifically for women, and even if they did have fancy armor made that was more feminine for women, having the outline of boobs on the armor wouldn't be practical for a real fight, because if you go to stab somebody with a sword, well, they've got prominent shaped tits on their breastplate. Because it's outlined, it would actually redirect the sword towards the center. And, it still serves as protection because it is still a metal plate. But the idea is you don't want to redirect the sword towards the center of your breastplate. You want to redirect it away from your breastplate entirely, because you don't want a sword to be pointing at you at all when you're on the battlefield. And while male armor is designed to do exactly that, to redirect the sword elsewhere, if you had the shape of boobs on your armor, it wouldn't do that. And that's a fair critique, that's a fair observation. But does that really matter in fantasy? Does that really come to play a part when you have women who can move at supersonic speeds, do cartwheels in the air, and throw out these blade slashes from 20 countries away? My answer would be no, because stuff doesn't have to be realistic in a unrealistic setting. Now, obviously, within every story, there's a suspension of disbelief. You set up rules within your universe, and if you do have female warriors with these very exposed spots on their armor, right off the bat, you expect them to be a badass fighter, because in a way, you can see the fact that they have exposed parts of themselves as a way of baiting the other person to attack them in that area. And if you're so confident that someone can attack you in that area and you can still fuck them up, then you're probably a badass. Furthermore, there's a lot of anime characters who are supposed to be really flexible, very movement-based, so it makes more sense for them to be wearing less armor. There are certain aspects in a story in which it would make more sense for women to not be wearing as much armor. And so long as it makes sense within the fantasy story, there's not much cause for complaint that it's not realistic. Then there begs the question, is it sexist for you to have feminine outlines in female armor? And I feel like a lot of people who say that yes, it is, aren't very informed about how visual information is passed. So in a visual medium, there are certain characteristics of characters that need to be apparent through their design. So because of this, you don't see a lot of women very often in a full suit of male armor, because then you wouldn't be able to tell if they were a boy or if they were a girl. It wouldn't be apparent information to the audience. Furthermore, if you just have them in very basic armor, what is that supposed to tell about their personality if they're all wearing the same thing? How are you supposed to tell characters apart? There was this one video that I watched a while ago in which this guy was talking shit on Bewb Armor and how it's totally ridiculous for women to be wearing this type of armor and they should just wear boys' armor. They should all just wear the same armor. And there was one portion in the video where he says, oh, if you don't believe that women can be hot in boys' armor, then look at this. And he started flashing all of these images of like girls in regular armor. But all the images that he flashed with girls in regular boys' armor had the girls with their helmets off. Now, if you're gonna argue that women don't need to remove any parts of armor to look hot in armor, maybe you shouldn't be showing pictures of women without certain parts of armor on and say, look how hot women can look with a full suit of armor. As if the helmet doesn't count as a vital part of the rest of the armor. Yeah, no one ever gets killed by getting hit in the head. But my point is, the reason why he was showing all these pictures of like pretty girls in regular boys' armor without their helmets on is because that's the only way we would have known this was a girl. It's not her body that looks pretty in this suit of armor. If you just look at the body, you can't really tell what gender this person is. It's the face that's pretty. I won't call that person out or anything, mostly because I can't even remember what YouTube they were. I only bring it up because it was a really bad argument. So what is my like personal opinion on Bewb Armor? Like I said before, I think it's very dependent on what type of story you're going to tell. If you're gonna go hyper fantasy, then yeah, sure, go for it. If you're gonna do like something a little bit more realistic, a little bit more well-grounded, maybe this female character doesn't have any superpowers. If she doesn't have any superpowers or any supernatural gifts at her disposal, maybe she should be wearing a full suit of armor. And it's not like we haven't seen women in regular suits of armor before. It's not like that's just something that doesn't exist in any cartoons or movies or whatever, but people act like it's such a widespread problem. There's a reason for why it happens, but to suggest that it happens all the time is just so beyond true. In fact, as a child, I remember growing up and I watched this really obscure movie that you probably wouldn't even have watched. I don't even think that people know that it exists, but it had the main character be a female and she was wearing boys' armor. You can look it up if you get the chance. It's called Mulan. I believe it was a Disney movie, but not a lot of people know that it exists. You see, one of the reasons why Mulan was wearing the armor is because she doesn't have superpowers. Unlike the new one, of course. My main concern when it comes to armor on a female is that it's designed well. I don't care if it's realistic or not. I just want it to look good. I just want it to fit that character and like her vibe, and I don't care if it's stylistic in order to achieve that. Now I'm sure some people might argue, well, can't you make her fully clothed and still make it a good design and make it make sense? Sure you can. Theoretically, you can draw anything if you just put your mind to it. But what's important is that you achieve the goal that you set out to achieve. What's important is that you characterize the character the way that you intended. And so that is how I feel about Bewb Armor. But what do you guys think? Leave your own thoughts and opinions down below in the comments section. That's what it's there for. Of course, if you'd like to see more videos from me, more videos will come out. So make sure that you're subscribed so you actually see the videos. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!
Program restart. Shutting down all systems.